Hey guys, welcome back to the second episode of our Borealis XL kayak build. Today we're going to start off by cleaning up the edges of the pieces of paneling that we glued together in the last episode. As you can see here, I'm starting off by using a box cutter to cut off the excess fiberglass that's laying over the edges of the pieces that we just glued together. So I'm going to go ahead and cut off as much of that as I can with the box cutter, being careful not to cut into the wood. Once you've got done with the box cutter, go ahead and hit it with a little hand sander just to make sure that you're really getting that perfectly cleaned up so that you have nice smooth edges to fit together eventually when you're building your boat. Additionally, I took this opportunity to go ahead and clean up some excess epoxy, especially on the first few pieces that I did. I used too much epoxy, and you can see that there's a lot of extra stuff sitting there, so we're going to need to clean that up. You can see I'm just cleaning that up with the hand sander here. This is on the inside of the boat. I made sure to do the inside portions first so that if I did have a little mistake like that, you wouldn't see it. So once you've got all your pieces cleaned up, we're going to move on to the next step in this process, which is gluing some reinforcements to the lower part of the bow deck. You can see here I'm measuring those out and measuring against the extra piece of plywood that was with the kit. So once you got that measured and cut, it's time to go ahead and epoxy that on as backer board, essentially, to the number 5 and number 6 panels. So you can see here I'm mixing up my epoxy just like we did in the last episode. And also I'm going to go ahead and utilize some of the wood shavings thickener that came as part of the kit as well. You can go ahead and mix that in with your epoxy and hardener to get the epoxy itself to a thickness or a viscosity that's similar to honey. At least that's what the instructions say. I'll note that here I don't think that I really got it thick enough, so I would go ahead and give you the heads up to go ahead and be pretty liberal with your usage of the sawdust to thicken it up. So as you can see here, because mine's a little bit thin, it spreads a lot, and it's going to cause some difficulty here for me as I try and get my reinforcement pieces squared up, lined up, and glued on. Once you've got those panels set in, the reinforcement panels curing, we're going to go ahead and move on to the next step, which is drilling some holes in our boat so that eventually we can wire the pieces together. You can see here I'm starting off by building a jig that'll assist in accurately positioning the holes that we need to drill. And so we're going to go and take a scrap piece of 1/4 inch thick plywood and cut it into 1/2 inch wide by 6.5 inch long. We're going to draw a line down the center and drill a 1/16 inch hole, 1/4 inch from each end. Now that you got your jig complete, we're going to go ahead and start putting our first holes in along the edges. And you can see here that I'm going ahead and lay some lines out here so I can get my starter holes lined up and prepped correctly. So you're going to go ahead and use the lines that I'm drawing here to get a 1/2 inch in from the tops and bottoms of the planks and a 1/4 inch in from the end. And you're going to do that on both ends of the panel. Once you've got the end of your panels ready, you're going to want to go ahead and lock those down, one panel on top of each other, right? So both of your number 4s and both of your number 5s, etc., are going to be stacked on top of each other, and that way you're going to be able to make sure that you're drilling your holes exactly through both panels that are going to be tied together exactly. So you're going to drill a 1/16 inch hole every 6 inches, a 1/4 inch in from the upper and lower edge of the panels. And you can see here, I'm going to use that jig to make sure that I'm doing this correctly. So after you're done drilling your holes, we're going to do a little bit of beveling on some of the edges of our panels here. So as you can see, I've got a little hand bevel that I'm going to be using here to go ahead and on the number 4 and number 5 panels, get the edges where those two panels are going to meet together, and you're going to bevel those edges to 45 degrees on both panels. This way, when you're putting your boat together and that side wall meets the top of the boat, it's going to fit together a lot more nicely than it would have if you had not beveled these edges. I'll say that this isn't going to take up much time in this video, but this did take me a really long time to do, as it is pretty manually intensive, certainly on your hands, and you can only do a little bit at a time here. So I'm going to go ahead and just show you a little bit of that so you can see what that angle looks like in beveling those correctly. And that's going to bring us to the end of our video. Next time we'll be stitching the boat together using the holes we drilled and some wire, and things will really start to look like a boat.